Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. I'm glad you can join us. My Strategy episodes are on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to get your thoughts at any time, so send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Today, we're going to be talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. In this episode, we're going to explore the impact of the wrong mindset in these uncertain times. We're going to discuss the mindset of great business leaders, the science behind why mindsets matter, and provide some mindsets that can help you right now. Well, again, very happy to be here with you today. Saturday is a great day of the week, in my personal opinion, to reflect on my strategy. But keep in mind that any day is a good time to assess your strategy. The My Strategy radio show is growing. We're available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many more digital platforms. So if you'd like to go listen to this episode in podcast form or listen to any one of the other episodes, they're all out there. You can find me on most social media platforms. My Twitter handle is @HawkinsJohn, and my website is johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals, because the best laid plans don't always work. Now, this week, I'm looking for stories about mindsets. Do you have any good examples, a tip or a trick? You can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. Also, we do have our giveaway live and active this week. So go to @HawkinsJohn or johnmhawkins.com for ways that you can enter. It's extremely simple. All you need to do is follow me on one of the many social media platforms that I have, and you will be automatically entered to win. All right, so we're talking about finding the right mindset. We're going to be talking about a number of things. But right now, I can say that with this pandemic, getting into the wrong mindset's very simple to do. Many people start thinking about they're afraid, therefore they can't. They'll never find anything better than where they are today. Is this as good as it gets? They've made their bed, now they must lie in it. So what we want to look at, though, is not think about all those negative thoughts, but think about what a great leader might do in times of uncertainty, and how many great leaders have a different mindset than the rest of us. They focus on growth. They focus on the implemental mindsets, promotional mindsets. Their mindsets are conditioned in a way that gives them ideas and opportunities in times of crisis, as opposed to somebody who might be thinking, no, this is as good as it gets. We're also going to go into a little bit of the cognitive science behind mindsets and why mindsets are so important. We won't get too technical, but we are going to go into how the mind works, and specifically the brain, and how all of that helps us set our mindset through past experiences. Hopefully it'll give us some tips on how we can put ourselves in the right position and start thinking differently. Because once you understand how the mind works and how it thinks, it gives you a great opportunity to change how you interpret the data. And then we're going to talk about some mindsets that could help you today. Things like self-trust, goal setting, being patient, courageous, focus-minded, positive-minded, or perhaps a learning mindset. So that's the show for today. I want to start off here with an article that says, it's by Lisa Ferencz, and the article is, You Are What You Think. She says, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, you are what you think all day long. She says, as a therapist, she tries to teach her clients that their thoughts profoundly impact their moods, and shifting emotions, their behavioral choices, their self-confidence, the healthy risks that they do or do not take, and their feelings of self-worth, self-esteem in all areas of life. Countless common thoughts can have negative and lasting impact, and she gives us 3 of them and explores ways in which changing those thoughts can lead to positive life changes. I think this is incredibly important now. We're dealing with a pandemic. Life as we knew it a month ago, 2 months ago, has completely changed. So we're going to explore this and see if there's any way we can gain some insights from it. So the first one is, I am afraid, therefore I can't. She says it's amazing how easily being afraid translates into there's no point in trying or believing that success can be achieved. She said a very bright and young talented client was repeatedly offered a promotion within his organization. Although he wanted to move up the ladder, he kept turning down the opportunity because he was afraid to speak in large groups and knew that would be part of the job. So she introduced a concept designed to change his thinking. Be afraid and do it anyway. Right now, I think many of us were used to the norm. We had ways of being successful in our jobs, in our careers, and now you might be forced into a situation where you need to grow. You need to do something that you are not comfortable doing with. One of those is the work from home. Many people are out there working from home. Many people now are being asked to have their videos on while they're working from home. Well, for some people, that can be intimidating, and really figuring out a way to do it confidently is something that they're going to perhaps be afraid of, but you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out to take that next step and to move on. The second point she says is, I'll never find anyone or anything better. This is as good as it gets. Countless men and women apply this mindset to unhappy relationships, dead-end jobs. One client had been in a long-term relationship and was clearly not getting her needs met, but she was afraid that no one better would come along, or that she wouldn't be okay if she wasn't in a relationship. She's decided to settle. She says, you don't have to put up a glass ceiling on how good things can be. And I think this is pretty interesting. It applies to dating, but I think it also applies to where we are with the pandemic. It's very easy to shift and get put into this new situation, and we start to feel like we need to accept it. Is this as good as it gets? Is this what life is going to be forever? We don't know what the future holds for us, but I think that if you take that mindset that this is what life is going to be like and day-to-day is going to be like this forever, then that's going to limit you. So we want to start thinking about what can the future hold, what is possible. The next one she talks about is, I made my bed, now I have to lie in it. She goes on to talking about how there was somebody who was trying to please his father, who was an attorney. He knew that starting from nothing and the work resonated with his truest self, but once he committed to law school and then a firm, he felt trapped. So his new thought became, deciding to make a change is a sign of courage and strength, and it's my right to do so. So now we have somebody, even though you might have made decisions and you've gotten to where you are today, you can have the courage, you can decide to make a change. And in this situation, if you don't feel you made the right decision years ago, there's always an opportunity for you to change. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about the mindsets of great leaders. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. This week, we're talking about mindset and finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. Right before the break, we were talking about you are what you think, and some of those negative thoughts that can creep in and impact our future success, such as I'm afraid, therefore I cannot, I'll never find anything better, is this as good as it gets? I've made my decisions, I've made my bed, and now I must lie in it. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about to be a great leader, you need to find the right mindset. The reason I'm talking about this is because leaders are many times faced with difficult challenges. They're faced with competition. They're faced with things that potentially could destroy the organization that they are leading. However, many leaders are able to overcome this. The good leaders are able to overcome this. So I want to talk a little bit about these good leaders because at the end of the day, you are the CEO of your own life. And if you expect to have success in life, you are the one who is accountable. You are the one who is responsible for making that happen. I've got an article here by Ryan Gottfried and Chris Reyna. It says, to be a great leader, you need the right mindset. Organizations spend roughly $356 billion on leadership development efforts every year. $356 billion on their leaders. How much are you spending on your leadership skills on a daily basis? How much are you spending on a yearly basis? Are you investing anything in your leadership skills? That's a question I have for you to think about as we go through this. It says, yet the Brandon Hall Group, a human capital research and analyst firm that surveyed 329 organizations, found that only 75% of the organizations rated their leadership development programs as not very effective. Why aren't companies getting more bang for their leadership development buck? And their latest research suggests that it's likely because most leaders develop efforts and they overlook a specific attribute that is foundational to how leaders think, learn, and behave. And they suggest that that overlooked area is their mindset. Mindsets are the leaders' mental lenses that dictate what information they take in and use, make sense of, and navigate the situations they encounter. So you've got these leaders who are running these large organizations, whether it be for profit or not for profit, leaders who are running the governments of the world, leaders who are doing great things. And yet, what is it that helps them make decisions? Do they have a book that has all the answers in it? Do they have somebody who's telling them what decisions to make? This article suggests that no, that it is their mindset that is what helps leaders do what they do, and most importantly, why they do what they do. They say here in this article, for example, they explain why two leaders might encounter the same situation. So let's say, for example, a subordinate disagreement. However, each leader will process and respond to it differently. And this is important because as we now are being thrown into this pandemic, even though we're all being thrown into the pandemic, one person might see it from one perspective and somebody could see it from the other perspective. Is your glass half full? Is it half empty? And so they go on to say that one leader might see the situation as a threat that hinders their authority, but the other as an opportunity to learn and further develop. When leadership development efforts ignore mindsets, they ignore how leaders see and interpret problems and opportunities like this. Article goes on to say you may wonder if mindsets are so important. Which one would help your leaders develop? And in their recent work, they broadly scoured research across the social sciences to understand the various mindsets that individuals may possess. In doing so, they identified 4 distinct mindsets that they have found to affect leaders' ability to engage with others, navigate change more successfully, and perform their leadership roles more effectively. So we're going to go through these mindsets. Keep in mind that these are very business-centric, and at some point it may not be too relevant to what we're trying to do. But I just want you to be open, listen to these mindsets, because later in the show, we're going to be talking about mindsets that could improve your life today. So you can just listen to these and see what they're all about. But we are going to, later in the show, talk about some mindsets that might have more direct impact on a personal level. All right. So what are these mindsets? We got growth and fixed mindsets. A growth mindset is a belief that people, including oneself, can change their talents, abilities, and intelligence. Conversely, those with a fixed mindset do not believe that people can change their talents, abilities, and intelligence. So which one are you? Are you somebody who believes that you can get smarter, that you can get better, that you can develop a talent, that you can become more intelligent? Or are you somebody who feels that your intelligence is fixed, your abilities are fixed, and you've been given no talents whatsoever? Two different mindsets, two different ways to look at it. One of them is a growth mindset. One of them is a fixed mindset. Now imagine that you went into a situation, one that we're in right now, let's say, and you went in there with a fixed mindset, and you've lost your job. You're at home. If you don't believe that you can't change your talents, that you can't change your abilities, that you're not intelligent, how is that going to affect your outcome? What if you had a growth mindset? You've lost your job, but you're talented and you can do something else. You definitely have the ability, and you know that your intelligence is there and can grow and overcome this. That is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The article goes on to talk about learning and performance mindsets. Is someone looking to learn, or are they competitive? Do you have a deliberate or implemental mindset? Implemental mindset, as the name suggests, are more focused on implementation. Leaders with deliberate mindsets tend to make better decisions because they are more impartial. Those are two other types of mindsets, business-focused. And then finally, they have promotion and prevention mindset. Leaders with a promotion mindset are focused on winning and gains. Leaders with a prevention mindset, however, are focused on avoiding losses and preventing problems at all costs. So anyway, a little bit of information here on leadership mindsets and those mindsets that great leaders who run large organizations have that make them successful. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about the cognitive science behind mindsets. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. The show is called My Strategy. This week, we're talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. Right before the break, we were talking about to be a great leader, you need the right mindset. We talked about some of those mindsets, growth and fixed mindsets, deliberative and implemental mindset, promotional and preventative. In this segment, I want to pivot, and we're going to talk about the cognitive science behind the mindset. Now, keeping in mind that I don't want you to know how all of this works, but what I want you to do is to listen to this information on the science behind it. And Ryan Gottfredson is the author of this paper. And what I want you to do is just think about how our physiology, how our mind works, and how all of that has an impact on what we do. And this is important because, I think many times, and from my perspective, I don't really think about what I'm doing. I just kind of do it. But if I understand the science behind it, or if I understand how things work, I now have the ability to affect change by introducing new variables, by gaining new information, by changing my environment, by decluttering my desk. It helps me declutter my mind. So that's really what I want to get out of this segment here. He goes on to say starts off by saying, what causes one person to see challenges as things to avoid, but another person to see those challenges as opportunities to learn and grow? The answer, of course, is our mindsets, which I assume you thought that would be the answer, since that's what we're covering today. But the author says, but why? To answer this question, we need to get into the cognitive science behind mindsets. Something I think you will find fascinating, is what he says. What exactly are mindsets, and where do they reside? At the surface, mindsets are the mental lenses that we wear that shape how we perceive our world. They are our mental fuel filters. That filter that selects information into our brain. For example, a challenge to be avoided or challenge to be approached. And that information goes on to fuel our thinking, learning, and behavior. But on a deeper level, our mindsets are neural networks in our prefrontal cortex that are associated with our associative processing memory. There will not be a test after this. I don't think I would pass the test. But the idea is, let's try and understand this. Let's see if what he's talking about makes sense, and it might give us some ways that we can augment our strategies. So he goes on to say, our prefrontal cortex is our brain's executive control center. It is where information from our senses is quickly transmitted to be processed to guide our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. This is where the filtering occurs. Now, there isn't actually a filter there, but it's a filtering effect which is driven by certain neural networks that are more prone and ready to fire than others. He says neural networks are comprised of connections between brain cells or neurons. Neurons have three main components: a cell, axon, and dendrites. The cell body is part of the cell which an electrical impulse is generated. This impulse travels to the axon, where specific chemicals called neurotransmitters, and he has here in parentheses are called out, for example, dopamine, are released into the space between the neurons called the synapse, where the axon in one neuron is closely connected to the dendrite of another. The series of neural connections comprise a neural network. Well, if your eyes are glazing over and you're not quite following along, that's okay, because we're not here to understand how all of this works. But he does go on to say, recall a particular experience in almost complete detail, and that is how fast binding this system works. So the system he described gives us the ability to do everything we do, to listen to this show, to get up in the morning and to make our breakfast. Everything we do focuses on this process. And he says we generally can only access it through conscious thought. Consciously, I want to do something. He says the other memory system is called the associative processing system, and this is a slower learning memory system. It uses knowledge accumulated from a large number of experiences to fill in information quickly and automatically about the current situation based upon similar situations that we have previously experienced. And that's where this is important. The first system is the chemical process that happens. It's quick, boom, boom, boom. We can recall things. But there's another memory system, which is the associated one, that's based off of all of the things that we've done in our life to date. In other words, when we observe a cue from one situation that the situation seems too risky, our associative processing system automatically retrieves information from the prior experiences, and that impacts your decision. So, for example, if you got burned last time you took a risk, to help us understand how to best navigate our current situation, this memory system operates largely non-consciously and helps us to quickly make sense of the situations we're in. The more we rely upon certain representations, what we are doing is strengthening the neural network associated with our associative process system. What that means is that the neural connection increases in strength. The axon will increase its ability to release neurotransmitters and dendrites, which will develop more dendritic receptors to capture the neurotransmitters. Hence, certain neural connections become more prone to fire, and others will more rapidly fire than others. Because we rely on them so much, scholars estimate that 90% of our thinking, feeling, judging, and acting is driven by our non-conscious automatic process. Now, that just because our brain may be more prone to fire in this way, we see a challenge as something to avoid, does not mean that we cannot process it in different ways. Seeing challenge as something to approach, it just means that if we want to use different neural connections, we have to overcome our initial wiring, usually through conscious thought. So what this means is that while you might be making decisions through a non-conscious mechanism, if we are aware that that is happening, it gives us an opportunity to step in and change that. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about some mindsets that can radically improve your life. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, if you're just joining the show, welcome, everyone. Very happy to have you here with us today. Today, we're talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. We're talking about the impact of the wrong mindset in uncertain times. We're talking about great business leaders and what their mindsets are. We've just talked about the science behind mindsets. And in this segment, we're going to talk about some mindsets that can radically improve your life now. Before I get into that, please feel free to send us your thoughts. You can send them to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. There also is a giveaway. You can go to my Twitter handle at HawkinsJohn or my website, johnmhawkins.com, and you can enter to win. It's a very nice prize package, if I do say so myself. And every one of those prizes, there's 3 of them, they're all COVID-friendly, which means that you are going to get digital certificates for all 3 of the prizes, and there will be 1 grand prize winner. And you won't have to get anything in the mail, which is nice because we don't have to send it, and you get it digitally. All right, so as I said right before the break, we were talking about the cognitive science behind the mindsets. And really, I didn't want to put you to sleep talking about that. But what I do want you to think about is, the brain works in many different ways. There's many different systems. And the system that you use every day to react is pretty automatic. But when it comes to situations and your mindset and how you approach things, a lot of that is unconscious, and it's based on decisions that you've made in the past and the outcomes of those decisions. And a lot of that stemming from you as a young child, when you tried to touch a stove and your mother said no, or your teacher said you're not good enough, or, a school bully, punched you in the face, and, all of that has an impact on us. So hopefully, when we realize that all of those events at some point shaped us to where we are, what we want to do is we want to come in and we want to say, you know what? Whatever happened to me in the past is in my past. And while I might be facing uncertain times right now, I have the ability to jump in and realize that my mind and thoughts have been jaded, shaded for some reason. And I'm going to change all that. I'm going to change all that today because I'm tired. I'm tired of living the way I'm living. And today, many of you, as you sit out there like all the rest of us, were forced to isolate. Can't get in within 6 feet of people. You have to wear masks when you go to the grocery stores. All of that might start to invoke a lot of thoughts and feelings from your past, whatever happened to you from the past to the future. And the question is, how are you going to let that affect your mindset? And I don't want to come out of this thing, like I was before it. I don't want to come out of this thing less than I was before this pandemic. I'm coming out better. And I hope that you will do the same thing. Because just because we're all facing a situation and it seems pretty dire, and there's lots of bad things that are happening to good people, I want you to know that I have confidence, I have faith in you, and I know that by adopting the right mindset, by setting ourselves up to be somebody who has the ability to learn from this, is going to put us in a much better position had we not done that. So I want to talk a little bit about some mindsets that could improve your life right now. It's by Lolly Daskal. She's the president and CEO of Lead Within. You can follow her at Lolly Daskal on Twitter. She says, possibly more than any other single factor, your mindset determines your success. What you think is what you've become. How many times have we heard that today? Every segment we've talked about that. Internal dialogue, the ongoing conversation we have within ourselves is our mindset. It is the driving force behind every success story, and it is also behind every failure. The difference between who you are and who you want to be stems from your mindset. Once you start to change your mindset, you will immediately start to change your behavior. Now, early on in the show, we talked about some of those successful CEOs of organizations and how they had the mindset that helped them, get from where they were in their current situation to future. These mindsets aren't for those CEOs. We might get to a position where we can make those types of decisions. But for now, in a pandemic, we need to be thinking about some more personal-based mindsets. We need to be a little bit selfish. So these 7, I think, resonate. The self-trust mindset. To do anything great, you have to be able to trust yourself, believe in your capabilities. Success is not something that just happens, but something you create. Goal-setting mindset. Knowing what you want and willing to do and reach for yourselves are two different things. The patient mindset. There's a fine line between moving forward and standing still. The courageous mindset. Doing anything requires courage, but fear always has a way of showing up. Do not be afraid. Focused mindset. One of the worst setbacks that can happen is losing focus and allowing procrastination to step in. The positive mindset. Choosing to be positive and having a good attitude will determine a lot about your life. The learning mindset. Just because you're struggling, that doesn't mean you're not learning. Every failure has something to teach you, and everything you learn helps you grow. So those are 7 different mindsets that you can adopt today that hopefully will help you through our current situation. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to help you develop your strategy. I'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, I'm very happy to be here with you today. I hope you're glad to be here. My strategy radio show is live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to hear from you. You can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And this week, we're talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. This episode, we're exploring the impact of the wrong mindset in these uncertain times. We're talking about the mindset of great business leaders, the science behind why mindset matters. And I just talked about providing some mindsets that can help you right now. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about developing your strategy. The show is all about personal development. It's about, hopefully learning something today and being a little bit better tomorrow. And if we continually do that every day, at some point, we're going to transition from where we are in our current situation to that great future state. And as a result of that, we are going to feel accomplished, more successful, and we are going to hopefully get closer to accomplishing our goals, dreams, aspirations, etc., etc. To be able to do that, though, you need to have a systematic approach. And I have a very simple approach to this. I've got a 5-step process. Number 1, it's aware what our vision, our goals is, what we're trying to achieve. We have to assess and analyze, understand the situation, figure out what are some of those steps we can take, strategize and plan, implement your plan and support and evaluate. And, I don't want you to think about this in terms of a very complex process. You should be able to do it all on a single sheet of paper. We are the CEOs of our own lives, but we don't want to have a very complicated life, so we want to try and do it on one sheet of paper. So we want to think about awareness. What's our vision? What's our goals? What do you want to achieve? 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we were aware that there potentially was a virus out there. And as time progressed, we found out that it was contagious. We found that people started dying from it. Next thing we know, it's a epidemic in certain countries. Then before we know, it's a pandemic. Within almost the blink of an eye, a few months, all of a sudden, our situation changed. Everything that we knew, everything that was a constant, that all changed. It changed over the course of a few weeks. So what does all that do to our vision, our goals, and what we want to achieve? It has a big impact, huge impact. If you can't have people come into have gatherings of more than 25 people, and your business model is to perform or have events, how are you going to make money by only having 25 or people at your venue? So, you do it through economies of scale. You need 10,000 people. You need 5,000 people to come in, and they all pay a little bit of money. And that's how you're going to go about getting revenue from your concert or from whatever you're doing that requires people to come in. So if you only have 25 and you want to make the same amount of money, you would have to charge people 100 times, what they would be normally paying if you had more people. So this is directly impacting how we are going to accomplish our goals. If you were a restaurant owner and you had seating for 100, and now you have to find a way to have seating for 25% of that, that's going to impact your business model. And as a result of that, it's going to impact your vision and your goals and what you want to achieve. Now, something could happen, and maybe this thing goes away and there's a vaccine, or people develop some sort of immunity to it, and all of a sudden things go right back to normal. But if they don't, what is your contingency plan? So we just need to be aware that it's here, but we also want to start to be working through it. So we need to go to the second step, which is assess and analyze. We need to be thinking about the situation. We need to be actively doing some analysis. If we are a restaurant owner and we now have to adapt to this new reality, what are we going to do to change our business model so that we can continue to be a profitable entity? What are you going to do if you are an entertainer? What are you going to do? All the sporting events, all of that is going to be impacted. So we need to start thinking about this from the perspective of, we have a new normal. We have a new reality. How are we going to impact our future situation? How are we going to impact our target state by making decisions today? And that means that we have to strategize and plan. We have to look at those old courses of actions that we did and realize that we're not going to be successful with those old courses of actions. Sending out a mailer and having, Taco Tuesday and bringing 100 people into your 100-person capacity restaurant isn't a reality. You can't do it anymore, right? I mean, there's a limitation. So what are some of those other strategies that we can do? And I think how mindset comes into play is that if you have a fixed mindset, you're going to continually be thinking about that old business model, that old course of actions that you did to help provide, life-sustaining, income for you, for your workers, et cetera, et cetera. Now we've been placed in a new reality. There's a new norm. How do we adapt? So we're going to need to figure out these new courses of actions. We're going to need to find a way to reinvent ourselves. Once we do that, we need to implement it, take some risks, get those new strategies out there, those new courses of actions, test them, and then ultimately get some support and evaluation. I can tell you that this isn't going to be easy. It's not easy on anyone. It is definitely something that is scary and frightening. And I'm hoping that, by talking about mindset today, that will help us at least face the situation that we're in and help us change our mindset, because I truly believe that in changing your mindset, it is going to help impact your future state. Just like those great leaders we talked about do, those CEOs who are faced with immense pressure, and they must pivot and they must make tough decisions. We too, from a personal development perspective, are going to also have to make those tough decisions. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your strategy in place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy. It's live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're coming to you live on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, I'm happy to be here with you today. Today we've been talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty. And in case you've missed this broadcast, you can listen on iHeartRadio and Apple iTunes. And if you'd like to have something covered in the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com or give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. That's 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. As I said, today we've been talking about finding the right mindset in times of uncertainty and exploring the impact of the wrong mindset in these uncertain times, talking about the mindset of great business leaders, the science behind why mindset matters, and providing mindsets that can help you right now. Talk today about you are what you think. If you are afraid and don't think you can, then you can't. If you'll never find anyone better, or accept that this is as good as it gets, then that is what will happen. If you've made the conscious decision that you've made your bed and now you have to lie in it, then you will lie in that bed. But I'm here to say that not everybody thinks that way. In fact, many of the great leaders, the great CEOs, the great leaders of organizations are able to take situations that might seem negative, that might seem there's no other outcome, and they are able to thrive. They see the positives. They see what they can do. They see how things can get better from where they are today. And the way they do that is by having the right mindset. Leaders of organizations think about the growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. They believe that they do have talents. They believe that things are not fixed and that they can learn new things. We learned about why mindset matters. There's actually cognitive science behind it. We learned a little bit about, at a deeper level, that there are certain things that impact us on a daily basis and our body just reacts. But there's also the associative processing memory and a different system in the memory that bases our decisions off of past occurrences. And if you've had a lot of negative past occurrences or been bitten multiple times, you are not going to make decisions that could potentially lead you to get bitten. So we want to realize that there's some prejudice, there's some bias with how our mind thinks, and everything that's happened to us from the time we were born to today could be impacting us negatively and keeping us from having the right mindset. So we talked about some mindsets that could help you today, like self-trust, goal setting, being patient, having a courageous mindset, a focused mindset, a positive mindset, or a learning mindset. We took all of that and we started to develop and build our strategy. Our strategy, which includes us taking risks. It includes us realizing that things are going to change. But in order to do that, we have to break those old habits, which means we have to be aware of them. And we must consciously prioritize and commit to our goals. Well, that's all the show we have for this week. Really appreciate you being here. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We'll see you next time.